Hi, folks. It's Mark Smith with Family Tree Brand Life Coaches. It's sort of a cloudy, rainy, quiet Saturday morning here in South Carolina. And I got up this morning and um, I had a video script write itself. So I'm going to share that with you. We have a really excellent Chinese buffet here in Surfside Beach, South Carolina. I've only been going for the last couple of weeks, but I went in this weekend and I saw a fortune saying, and my experience has been the universe can really talk with you through the power and wisdom of fortune cookies. And this one said, "Your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding." I was like, wow, that's deep. So I figured it wasn't some guy who writes fortune cookie quotes who came up with that. So I, I got on Google and I found out that it is a quote from the great, I'm going to mess his name up, uh, Kahlil Gibran. Kahlil Gibran. Um, and I was very familiar with the name, but I couldn't tell you exactly who that was. But he was a Lebanese-American artist, poet, and writer. He was born in modern-day Lebanon, and as a young man, he migrated to the United States with his family, where he studied art and began his literary career. He is chiefly known in the English-speaking world for his 1923 book, The Prophet, an early example of inspirational fiction, including a series of philosophical essays written in poetic English prose. He is the third best-selling poet of all time, behind a couple fellas named Shakespeare and Lao Tzu. So this is a wise man, a great poet. But I found out that the quote went on and got better. Your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. It is the bitter potion by which the physician within you heals your sick self. Therefore, trust the physician and drink his remedy in silence and tranquility. Bang, that is so good. So, as a therapist, I have this tool. I'm not going to draw it for you now, but with all my clients, I usually in the first session, I just draw a circle and I draw the word wounds at the center of the circle. And then I put X's, little X's all around the circle, and that represents psychological defense mechanisms. And so I explain to people that whether you, okay, I call it Mother Nature, but to me, God created Mother Nature. God created systems in the world. So don't think I'm unchristian if I'm using the word Mother Nature, okay? But Mother Nature has this system that has three agendas for supplying each of us with defense mechanisms. Number one, Mother Nature wants you to survive your childhood with the least amount of stress and the least amount of pain as possible. The second thing is Mother Nature wants those defense mechanisms to last for at least through into your 30s. It's a very rare person whose shell gets unenclosed and broken so that they can have understanding before they reach 33 years old. That's the very earliest usually. Most real powerful work is done about mid 40s. I don't know if you guys knew that. Because you have more time to screw your life up and be maritally unhappy. Um, so the second agenda is Mother Nature wants you to be in your 20s, wants you to be deaf, dumb, blind, and stupid, and to fall in love with somebody who you think you're getting, you know, the greatest person in the world with just a few flaws. And you find out to your horror, 10, 15, 20 years later, that you basically married the worst qualities of your parents, the very thing you told yourself you weren't going to do. The third agenda, my friends, is the wicked one and the wonderful one. And that is Mother Nature wants to use relationship pain to break the shell around you that encloses and keeps you from knowing very much about the truth of yourself. I'll put my slippers on here now. I'm getting cold. So when a 45-year-old, couple of 45-year-olds come in and they've been married 20 years and they wore each other down and they've tried everything else, their shells are already broken. All I got to do is flip on the light switch and tell them the understanding about themselves. In movies, sometimes the therapist, just sits there and says, well, I'm not really there to teach anything. You already have all the answers in yourself. I think that is just the most stupid, retarded, crazy, asinine comment ever made anytime. If you knew the answers to your life, you wouldn't be reading books, watching videos, and going to therapists, would you now? So, we all have an outer shell. We all have an outer shell. We're all just wounded little kids walking around in adult bodies trying to be responsible. So, what is the truth about you? You're not going to find the truth about you in a book about psychopathology. You're not going to find the truth about you in focusing on the flaws of your spouse. You know where you're going to find the truth about you? In your family tree. I can't know you unless I know your dad, your mom, your grandparents. Sometimes I need to know about your great-grandparents. I need to know about the entire history of every relationship you've ever been in of any consequence. And then I need to know about your siblings. You give me all that information and I'll tell you exactly who you are and exactly where you came from. But you can't see it, one, because you don't understand that paradigm, and two, because it's human nature to want to keep the shell up, and we're too close to the forest to actually see the trees. So in the Bible, there's on 2 occasions a quote that says, the sins of the fathers, it shall be visited upon the children and upon the children's children to the 3rd and the 4th generation. Now that doesn't mean, in my opinion, that God's up there giving somebody cancer because something his grandfather did. That's, again, an asinine statement in my opinion. What it means is the doo-doo runs downhill. That if you were wounded, and we're all wounded as children, but if you're severely wounded as children, unless you get into a recovery process, in your early 30s, and when your kids are little, you're going to pass on your stuff. You're going to pass on your stuff anyway, but the quicker you get healthy, the less you'll pass on. So this next sentence is really important. It's the heart and soul of this video. Your narcissistic abuse, your complex PTSD symptoms, you attaining those, experiencing those, putting yourself in the line of fire, it was not unfair. Your narcissistic abuse is not a tragedy. It is something you can recover from, and it was inevitable. I get so many people that come in and they're shocked that they're having marital problems. We get into their family of origin, and it's Charles Manson being married to the daughter of the devil himself. Hell yeah, of course you're going to have trouble. You can't have a damaged, addictive, abandoned, wounded, destroyed childhood and grow up and have a happy marriage. So you having the marital pain that breaks the shell, that has been hiding you from the truth about yourself, is one of the best things that's ever happened to you. Your narcissistic abuse can be, if you learn from it, one of the best things that's ever happened to you. So the people who hurt you the most, they are your greatest teachers, for which you should have great gratitude towards. So I just encourage you to quit fighting the pain, quit self-medicating, quit pointing a finger at the other person, and dig in and do work on your own self. Spend some time with the man or the woman in the mirror, feeling the pain, crying the tears. I call it deep processing, and that's crying and crying and crying and crying. And for codependents, it means getting in touch with your healthy anger, and learning how to have a voice and becoming somebody with some spine. But in our culture, there's a tendency to self-medicate. You have marital problems, and instead of seeking out a therapist who can not do marriage counseling, but fix the real problem, which is the two of you and your history going back to 2 generations. Many times the first stop is the family doctor, where you get Prozac or Lexapro or something that'll take your pain away, and you're missing the point. That pain is supposed to make you so miserable that you'll actually walk into a therapist's office. So pain ain't a bad thing. It's a good thing. Let me read that one sentence again. Your narcissistic abuse was not unfair. It was not a tragedy. It sure felt like a tragedy at the time, didn't it? Still does, doesn't it? But it wasn't a tragedy. It was Mother Nature intervening in your life so you could heal. And you can recover from it. You'll never recover all the way. And it's real slow healing. I'm sneaking up on 4 years, and I'll be honest with you, I'm happier now than I've ever been in my whole life. And I think I'm more solid now than I've ever been in my whole life. But I couldn't have done it without that wicked, nasty, lying, cheating, psychopathic, borderline narcissist I was in a relationship with for 6.5 years. I owe her a great amount of gratitude and debt for how I've used that experience, and how God and Mother Nature have used that experience to help me to heal. It's one of the best things that has ever happened to me. Hey, I got a couple of conferences coming up. There's one in March that I'm doing with an organization, and I'll get some emails out to you. The topic is abandonment issues, And then I was contacted yesterday by a woman in Australia. And in April, I'm going to be speaking at a video conference on the topic of um, narcissistic abuse and the law. And this former lawyer in Australia mentioned the TV series Dirty John. And it was, I don't know if it was available yet on Netflix, but it isn't right now currently. I found it on Apple iTunes. But if you have been fairly recently um, shattered, I wouldn't watch Dirty John because it's in a real extreme example of a total sociopath at work. And I was watching it and I thought it was a little bit ludicrous in a way because it was just such an extreme example of just a complete psychopath. But my wife, who was married to somebody like that at one time, got pretty triggered because she goes, "Well, he did this, he did that, he did this, he did that." Um, so uh, if you've got some miles under your belt and you enjoy watching movies about this stuff, I think most of us do if we're in the right mood. If we're too fragile, maybe we stay away from it. But I found that the TV show Dirty John was very, very, very powerful. My wife and I both had a little trouble sleeping last night. So um, please subscribe to our channel and buy my books. Get on familytreecounseling.com. And I have an excellent book on abandonment issues. My book on narcissistic abuse, I wrote it when I was really shattered. So it's a bit messy, but there's a lot of raw truth in it, and it's well worth the $4.95 you would pay for it. And then I also have a great book on affair recovery and a great book on shame in terms of how it affects communication and relationships. So I think I'm going to go to the gym, and I wish you guys a wonderful day, and thank you for watching, and God bless.